Good morning, good morning, good morning. It is Friday, the 24th of July, 2026. Well done on making it this far. I'm Graham Hughes. Hello, welcome to Morning Brew. Broadcasting from a very blustery and rainy morning here on the banks of Loch Lomond, or near Loch Lomond anyway. Big shout out to everyone who's hung on for the last 25 minutes for me to get my shit together, get all my shit together, put it in a backpack, put it in a museum if you got to, just get all your shit together. We've got blah blah CW in the chat, we've got Townsend, we've got Diz, we've got me mum. Hi mum, happy birthday for yesterday, mum. We've got Viper Scott in there, Simon Smith as well, Saz as well, Hanneman. Liam Fairhurst has joined the party. If you'd like to join in, all you need to do is hit the subscribe button if you're watching this live and wait for 1 minute, and you'll be able to add your opinions to the chat. Just don't be a troll. Just don't be mean. Just let me move my microphone. Just one sec. I hope that didn't make too many horrible noises. My laptop is a little bit wobbly this morning, as you can see. If I just touch it, you see I wobble a little bit. Yeah, I'm gonna be very, very dainty and delicate with my laptop. Although I have to say, if we do manage to get to our goal of 5 super chats before the morning is out, then we will absolutely be hammering the Bim Feffy button, the Bim Feffy button. So yeah, let me just get that set up for yous, and then I will be. Oh, I shouldn't put my mic on my keyboard, should I? That kind of makes it a bit more difficult to press buttons on my keyboard. Right, okay, let's get going. Start the goal. Hey everyone, everyone's saying good morning. Oh, isn't that nice? Happy day, Beth. Everyone's saying happy birthday, Graham's mum. Oh, thanks so much to people wishing my mum a very splendid birthday again. Another successful revolution around the sun. Yay. And I'll be in Liverpool on Sunday. So yeah, see you soon, mum. Anyway, so was it this Sunday? No, next Sunday. Not this Sunday. I'm going to still be here. Next Sunday, I'll be in Liverpool. A week on Sunday. Okay, I'll see you then. Anyway, so yeah, first of all, we're going to talk about number 10, moving north. Miss Tessmacher, north. I hope everyone got the reference there. If you didn't, whatever. It's from Superman 2. Gene Hackman says it, playing Lex Luthor. The best Lex Luthor that ever was. The Bex Luthor. No, that doesn't work, does it? Andy Burnham has opened a permanent prime ministerial base at Heron House in Manchester. He intends to work there alongside ministers and relocated civil servants. The building will host meetings of the revived National Economic Council. Regional mayors will participate directly in discussions on economic policy, infrastructure and regeneration. Louise Haigh will oversee coordination between the Manchester operation and Downing Street. This is quite an exciting prospect, bringing in the regional mayors from all over England, but particularly from the north, and getting their say on local matters matters a lot to me. Being from the north, I know I'm probably a bit biased, but I'm glad that we have finally got a prime minister who, not being perfect in any shape or form, and could do a lot better on certain topics that we'll talk about, I'm sure, at some point in the show. However, having someone who sounds like me is nice for a change. You know, it's the first time in my life we've had a northerner as a prime minister, a proper northerner as a prime minister. In the greater scheme of things, I think since the war we've had twice as many prime ministers from the school Eton. We've had twice as many prime ministers from Eton as we've had from the north. Yeah, so the school in the south near Slough has had more prime ministers, produced more prime than the north. So let's just take a step back and just say, okay, that's a good thing, right? And there's a few good things that Andy Burnham's done this week. He pledged straight away rough sleeping. That's got to be a number one target before he even walked into number 10. He has said they're going to cut the VAT on energy bills, which is very welcome. He said he's going to cut the cost of the business rates for pubs, which is very welcome as well, and venues, so that there's a lot of venues out there that are closing down or have closed down. Anyone who has fond memories of the Zanzibar in Liverpool, one of the best live venues we had in Liverpool for up and coming bands, and that's now an Irish themed pub. Yeah, and it's called McNasty's or something like that. It's just ugh. Anyway, the Department of Masculinity. Gestapo Greg Bovino starts 2028 presidential campaign. Ex-ICE commandant to restart Doge and set up Department of Masculinity. Seems to be some kind of crisis of masculinity going on, where all these weirdos are like, "Oh, come save us, come save us. I need a strong man to protect us against the transers. They need to protect us against the gays. Will a strong man come and protect me?" Isn't it weird? Like the most right wing politicians who are like most homophobic are always turn out to be gay. Like 100% of the time, are gay. There was a story about, wasn't there a Hungarian politician, one of Orban's lot, who was hugely against gay rights? I mean, someone might know their name in the chat. They're hugely against gay rights. The engine behind a lot of the homophobic, anti-LGBT plus laws that came in Hungary, and he got seen like climbing out of a window to escape from a 50-man orgy that was going on in Belgium. You couldn't make this up, well, you could actually, but like a 50-man orgy, a 50-man big gay orgy in Belgium. And he's like climbing out the window. I shouldn't laugh because it's horrible, really. And then, not the orgy. I mean, that sounds like fun, but I mean, the fact that you got these horrible right-wing toe rags like Greg Bovino and Trump and JD Vance and all this, who are doing all this stuff to destroy the rights and privileges of just the rights. Actually, don't really get much in the way of privileges, but yeah, the rights of the LGBT communities, and also, I mean, also destroying the rights of any minorities, destroying the rights of women. And it's always the same lot. And I guarantee that if we just did a raid on Graham Linehan's laptop, you will find so much trans porn on there. It would be ridiculous. It'll be like 99% trans porn. I guarantee it. That's why we've got to make an episode of Father Ted called Mother Ted, and everyone in it is trans. And the old horrible man who dies, and they had to clear out his basement. It's a remake of that episode where everyone thinks that that Father Ted is a Nazi. So it's going to be Mother Ted, and everyone's going, "I hear you're a transphobe now." She's like, "I'm not a transphobe," and they explains why she's not a transphobe, etc. And then at the end of the show, instead of them going down to the basement and finding all the Nazi regalia that the old dead priest used to have, it's going to be Graham Linehan there with just like mounds of trans porn, just like dead in his seat from, I don't know, over masturbation. I don't know, just do something horrible to him in fiction. Father Graham of Father Graham of Linehan, from Linehan. He's from Linehan. Hi all, glad about Heron House. I've walked past and large police presence already. Last time I was there was years ago for a naturalisation ceremony. Ooh, cool, excellent. I hold fast to the idea of limited term MPs, 8 years an MP and you're out. Stops posh boy dynasty, says Kimberly. Um, no, I don't agree with that because I just think it's really arbitrary. And if you're a good MP, like surely we need you to do that job if you're good at that job. Um, the way that we stop these dynasties is we close down the private schools. So what we do, we close down the private schools, and then the children of millionaires and billionaires have to go to state schools with the rest of us. And then there's a chance that they might hang out with people who are not from the same social class as them. It might turn out, that they might fall in love with someone not from the same social class as them, or just be really good friends with someone who's not from the same social class as them. And I tell you this now, if we had one millionaire on the PTA of our girls' school, they wouldn't be having the problem with the roof. All the kids would have musical instruments. They wouldn't have to buy their own. In fact, music lessons will be free, like they are in private schools. Music lessons subsidised by you and me, because they're charities. You see, charities. Big brass bands, all those musical instruments, all the trumpets and the cornets and the trombones and the bassoons and the baboons, all being paid for and the sousaphone being paid for by the taxpayer, subsidised by you and me. Musical instruments for the children of billionaires. So yeah, no, I don't agree with term limits. I do think there should be a maximum age. Like, I don't think anyone, once you're sort of 70 years old, maybe you should take a back seat. I know in the House of Lords now, if you're over 80, they've kicked you out. And that's not being ageist. It's just like you need some new ideas coming in. You need some new perspectives, and you're not going to get that from an entrenched older generation who've had it absolutely great. And the boomers, let's make no mistake about it, they've had it absolutely great. No other generation will ever buy a house for £2.50 and now it's worth £17 million. No one else. No one. It's never going to happen again. Resloy, thank you very much for the £5 super chat. First super chat of the morning. I think council tax should be based on salary rather than its current form, which is completely unfair. The more you earn, the more you pay. Hope Andy sorts this. Thanks, Resloy. And I appreciate the super chat, although I am going to push back on this because I disagree. I don't think that council tax should be based on salary. I think it should be a land value tax. It should be the value of the land that the property is on. That'll bring down the price for council tax for everyone pretty much in the north and put it up for people in the south. I think that a land value tax is something that you can't move. It's there permanently. And also it will act as a way of discouraging people from keeping hold of, elderly couple who still have a 4-bedroom house. It will encourage them to downsize, along with getting rid of stamp duty as well, which is a stupid tax. It should be maybe like each year you pay a certain amount based on the land value of your property. I think that would be just a fairer way of doing it. If you're on a low salary, you're not going to be living in a mansion. And if you're, living in a mansion, you're probably doing all right. So, and then there's other things we can do with this where we can ensure that equity can be taken out of a house to help, pay for things later down the line. But also this has to come hand in hand. The wind's getting up. Look at that. It has to come hand in hand with a rejigging of the National Care Service, or the creation of a National Care Service, which will mean that if you do suffer from dementia later in life, you won't end up losing your house and all your possessions having to be sold off because it's £2,000 a week to get the carers round. Isn't it mad? Like, it's £2,000 a week to get the carers to come, and if you do it yourself, you get like, I don't know, 50 quid a week, if that. That's how I ended up with fixed terms. Most people don't stay in jobs for 5 years. 8-year limits loads of new ideas, waves of them. 8 years limit loads of ideas, waves of them. Fixed term. Most people don't stay in jobs for 5 years. Um, yeah, but I mean, there aren't that many people who make great politicians. It isn't an easy job, as we can see, because we've had 7 prime ministers in the last 10 years. So yeah, you would think there would be a pool of talent, but there isn't. It's like footballing or being a great actor. Not everyone can do it. People watch it on the TV or on the movie or down at the game, and they're like, "Oh, I could do that," and you couldn't. No, you just couldn't. It is incredibly difficult. And only a few people can do it. Never mind, like have the opportunity to do it, but just can do it in general. Um, but yes, Vesley, I disagree. I think council tax should be based on the size of the property, says War and Peace. Yeah, I do as well. I do as well. Because then you'd have people sitting on property, working in their old age as lollipop man or a lollipop person, or working as a nurse or a carer or something. And they'll be on minimum wage, but they'll be living in a £1 million mansion because that's all been paid off. They finished paying off the mortgage in the 1980s because it was only 50p. Agree about a maximum age in politics. Agree that most home owning boomers have had it good. Yes, they have. They have. I mean, the vast majority. When we look at how much wealth is held in that generation, it's like nearly 90% of the wealth of the nation is held in that generation. That's the wealth of the nation. That is crazy, isn't it? That's a bit much. It's a bit unfair. And it's because that the housing boom happened at a very, very convenient time, because a lot of boomers have paid off the mortgage on their first house by sort of the end of the 90s. And then it was like, oh, well, let's buy some more houses with all this extra money that we've got that we're not spending on our mortgage. And we'll get someone else to live in that house and pay our mortgage for us. Hey, look, they're on income support. Oh, brilliant. So we can get the taxpayer to pay that person who then gives us the money that they get on income support, and we can use that to pay off the mortgage on this second property, third property, fourth property, fifth property, and suddenly there's 100,000 people who don't have anywhere to live. Millions of families who are technically homeless. Yeah, I wonder why that happened. It's kind of crazy. It's like we just think this is normal now, that people are homeless and that people don't have homes and people don't have somewhere to stay and families are living in temporary accommodation. We just see it as normal. It's not normal. Most countries have sorted this out, and we're one of the richest countries in the world. We could have sorted this out ages ago, except Thatcher decided to privatise housing. She wants to privatise social housing. She thought of a wizard wheeze to do it, which was to allow people to buy the council homes, but then not allow the councils to rebuild houses to replace the council homes that the people have bought at very, very, very cheap rates. I've been working as a contractor for 20 plus years. I lost count of how many companies I've worked for, says Townsend. There are 2 reform mayors. They are doing everything they can to block or delay any progressive action. I don't want Burnham giving them any more power, says Mike. Well, I mean, the people of Lincolnshire, they voted for Andrea Loathsome, and she doesn't want to use Lincolnshire to make any money or to make any, to help any businesses or help any people who live there. She just wants to, do as she's bidded by her Russian, maybe Saudi, maybe American handlers. Kimberly, thank you very much, Kimberly, for the £2 super chat. Sending love to all. Let's look after each other till then. Oh, thanks very much, Kimberly. That's very, very kind of you for the £2 super chat. Yay, Kimberly. Yeah, there's there is a lot of policies that Andy Burnham can pull out at the moment without having to go to Parliament and ask permission. But one that he will have to ask permission for if he goes much further on it is the early release scheme. So there is actually an act of Parliament on this, so he can pause it because the implementation of the act, which says that people can get out after serving a third of their sentence to go on parole. Normally it's half your sentence, you're eligible for parole, and if the parole board decide that you haven't been a particularly bad egg in jail, you might get out. You have to wear an electronic tag, you have to be kept your parole officer, make sure that you keep to the rules of your parole. Maybe you're not allowed to leave the country, maybe you're not allowed to leave the county, maybe you're not allowed to leave the city, whatever it is. Yeah, Burnham has actually paused this scheme to reduce it from a half of the sentence to a third of the sentence. This was due to begin in September. Burnham has said no releases will take place under the policy while an urgent review is conducted. Again, I see this as something that Burnham probably doesn't want to do this. We've been put into this situation by the Tories, who left office with famously like 60 prison places in the whole country left. But the decision has followed objections from victims' families and warnings that safeguards were incomplete, and probation staff have been told to stop preparatory work, which has created uncertainty over cases already being processed, and the ministers have not ruled out introducing a revived scheme later because prisons remain close to the capacity. And something that I've thought of, I might have mentioned on the show, I don't know, I don't take credit for it if I didn't mention it on the show, but I have thought about this, is, we had those Nightingale hospitals that were built during COVID because the government panicked and went, oh, we need to do a thing now, and they did a thing. So that those hospitals that were built then were very put together at the last minute. There could be a way of sorting things so that people who are ready to come out of jail aren't necessarily allowed out into the streets, but they're put into some kind of Nightingale jail, which I imagine would be an ex-army base, something like a former army base, or maybe a current for army base, and put the army people somewhere else for a little while, just so we can free up 1,000 more places for prisoners to spend time. But I mean, it is going to be difficult. Obviously, you've got the added problem of criminality because it's a jail, and the number of guards you need and all that kind of jazz, all the prison workers. It could be very difficult. Gareth Driscoll would be a good person to talk to about this. Gareth T, who worked in prisons and spoke to me on how we fixed Britain a couple of years ago now. But yeah, I think that temporary solution is going to have to be the thing that they do, because the Tories left the situation so bad, because it wasn't just that there wasn't enough places in prison. They came in and they said, right, everyone's going to go to jail, no matter what. They all got to go to jail. So you get done for shoplifting, you go to jail. You get done for, something, a non-violent drugs offence, you go to jail. But they didn't bother building enough jails. It's like, that they said, oh, everyone should own their own home, but then they didn't bother to build enough homes for everybody. They said that everyone who, doesn't own a house by the age of 28, then they're failed at life. And that's their attitude, it very much, I'm all right, Jack. It's the Tory way. This is the Tory way. But my Reform Council Limited, Bradford, is cutting all grants for the less wealthy and are planning to sell off all council-owned property and land, says Simon Smith. Yeah, they will do, because that's what they do, because they're fucking scumbags. I mean, make sure, Simon, that all your neighbours know about this. Make sure that everyone knows what a bunch of crooks they are, because the only reason why people go into go join Reform is because they want to make money. That's it. I've seen Nigel Farage make an absolute killing, millions. He made millions, and they're like, yeah, I'll have some of that. Army bases, etc., aren't secure enough to be used as prisons, says War and Peace. Well, yeah, I know. But if you think about sort of low, what I'm thinking, I'm not thinking of like maximum security. I'm not thinking about people who have committed capital offences here. I'm thinking about people who have committed petty offences and would otherwise be going out into the community, but with a tag around their ankle, them being put into an old Pontins or something. I know this sounds mad, but like they'll be in one place. They're told they can't leave, and they have ankle tags on, whatever, that they can't take off. Or if they do take off, then they go back to the proper prison. So it's up to them whether they, if you've got a 10-year sentence, right, and you'd normally be up for parole after 5 years, but you're up for parole after 3.5 years because it's a third rather than it's a third-year sentence rather than half. It would be a year and a half, for instance, 18 months in this prison camp, which they used during the war, don't forget. And I know we don't have armed guards on watchtowers around the edges of these things, but with electronic monitoring, you can just make sure where people are, what they're up to some extent, and have the facilities there, have the electricity, have the water, have the heating, have the everything to keep people alive, but hold them there for the next 18 months until they've got that far, and then they can go back into society, wearing an ankle tag with the parole officer or whatever. There are ways around it, and yeah, the rule is if you try to escape, if you try and jump over the barbed wire fence, because it's not going to be, you're right, it's not going to be a massive concrete wall like Walton Nick. It's going to be it's just going to be a wire fence, isn't it? But if you do decide to break out, then we'll lock you up for even longer than you were supposed to be locked for up in the first place. So would it be worth it? Would you, if you only had 18 months in this holiday camp, essentially, and you knew that if you were good and you didn't try to escape, then you would get, you'd be out essentially on license after 5 years. After a year and a half, after 18 months, would you, 18 months you get out, or you risk trying to abscond, get out of there, get caught again, and then you get put back in the proper nick, and your original sentence has to be carried out in full, plus an extra 2 on the end, so, 7 years? An extra 7.5 years on your sentence in a proper jail? Yeah, called it. Yeah. Also, bases will need a lot of money spending to bring them accommodation up to standard. Yeah, War and Peace, but it'd be cheaper than building a purpose-built prison, which is what the Tories should have done. They're going to say we're going to lock thousands and thousands and thousands of people up. We need to have accommodation for thousands and thousands and thousands of people. The Tories never did that. There's another thing as well, which is the backlog of cases. Like the law courts are chocker at the moment, and they can't process enough cases to get through, so that's a problem as well. But yeah, listen, none of these solutions are great. You're going to be easy to pick holes in it and say, well, that can't work because of this, but I mean, when your back's up against the wall, which for Andy Burnham in this respect, it really is. The Tories have done a terrible job, and I think that the very frustrating attitude of the Starmer administration was, it'll be fine. Oh no, don't worry, it'll be fine. And it's not fine. And it's riled people up. And I think Starmer had this attitude of, we have to do what's right, even if it's a bit unpopular. Whereas I think Burnham's a little bit more of the lines of, we have to do what's popular. We have to do what's popular. Even if it's not the optimum solution to this problem, we need to do something that makes people at least feel chill about it all. And this is something that I don't think Starmer really ever understood, just because of his personality, is that we are just governed by our emotions, and he's the kind of bloke who'll turn up with a spreadsheet and go, well, actually, the data shows X, Y, Z. It didn't work for Biden. Biden spent the last year of his presidency telling everyone who'd listen that the economy was doing a lot better than it was when he took over the presidency, which it was. But it got worse before it got better, because Trump handed him a turd sandwich in the shape of the American economy. And Biden was like, okay, and he brought in the CHIPS Act, he brought in the American Restructuring Act, or whatever it's called, the Infrastructure Act, and he got a lot of stuff through their parliament, Congress, and he did really well. But because he didn't address the sort of day to day, people just didn't notice. And you can scream at people till you're blue in the face that the economy has finally started growing again. You know, for the first time in over 25 years. But like, you know, is it? Oh, sorry, 20 years. 20 years. But if people aren't feeling it, they're not feeling it. Where will they feel it? They'll feel it in their pocket when they only have to pay £2 to go to go to work. I mean, we're talking about the energy bill. The savings will be £45 a year, which isn't that great. You know, it's fine, but it's a headline. You know, he's doing stuff to help us out. It's a proactive thing that is actually helping people. But you could argue, well, what about people who are well off? They don't need to have their VAT taken off their energy bills. They can afford it. Yeah, but then you look at the bus thing, and the bus thing is going to be cheaper than taking the VAT off energy bills, and it will affect more people in a positive way, in a spectacularly positive way, because you're talking about thousands of pounds worth of savings for a lot of people who take two buses a day. You know. Push off early tomorrow, Saturday, says War and Peace. Trump used military for money from repairing bases to build the wall. He lies about rebuilding their military, and he gave US land to Mexico. He did. He did. We get onto him in a moment. Um, they surveyed army housing stock to house asylum seekers, and the amount of asbestos discovered was shocking. Yeah, yeah, I could imagine that, mate. I could imagine that. Yeah, asbestos. 20th century, eh? Everything's made of asbestos and lead and radioactivity. Yay! What a time! What a time to have been alive. But yeah, people thought it was normal. Do you know what this fuel needs in this car? It needs a lead. So people breathe in the lead. Okay, cool. Tories have always been a force for bad, says Mr. Tisk. Yeah, always. But yeah, breakout on Friday. F off, no way. It's fish and chip Friday, says Kimberly. Well, yeah, I mean, if you think about like minimum security prisons, are pretty much just got a fence around them. They don't have a big wall or anything, and that would be a way of doing it. And there's, look, like I say, there's no simple solution to this, but there are a lot of old military bases. I mean, at the end of the day, you can convert an old warehouse or even a new warehouse. You could take an Amazon warehouse over and just put a load of bloody camp beds in it for now. You can do that, you know. It's not optimal, obviously, but it's what people have to do who are fleeing from war zones. It's what they did. People fleeing from the war in Ukraine, they stayed in camp beds in a big massive Tesco Extra that was converted into asylum seekers accommodation while they waited to find somewhere in Europe to go to where they'll be safe. God, Greg, you said still paying for Thatcher. I read that and I thought still praying for Thatcher. I was going to say, what? What, Greg? What? No, but you're saying paying. Yeah, we're still paying for Thatcher. We're still paying for Reagan as well. I mean, the whole world is paying for Reagan. I saw a clip of Oliver North. Do you remember him? Oliver North on Fox News, and he was the defense expert, Oliver North, and he was saying that it's very important that Iran doesn't have any missiles. Does that name ring a bell with anyone? Oliver North? Yeah, he was the guy who was behind the whole Iran-Contra affair, where they were selling rockets to Iran and funding the Contra rebels in Central America. Yeah, so guy who used to sell rockets on the sly to the Iranian regime is now appearing on the TV saying we definitely shouldn't allow the Iranian regime to have any of those rockets that are sold them. Indeed. In his general election, another joke candidate standing in Clacton against Farage because he hasn't stopped talking about him. I don't know. I know there's. I thought there was 32 people standing in in Clacton, but someone said it was 34. Can someone do a fact check for me? Can someone do a fact check if it was 30, 32 or 34, please? Thank you. Right, so all these things that Burnham's doing, right, this week, he's only been in since Monday. It's only day 5. It's only day 5. Andy Burnham's approval rating, I mean, more in common, which I don't know if Phil thinks much of more in common, but more in common has given Andy Burnham a net approval rating of plus 13 during his first week as Prime Minister. Keir Starmer's highest recorded score with the pollster was plus 11 shortly after the 2024 general election. Starmer's rating was minus 42 when he left office. Look, for those left thinking that it was a bit mean kicking Starmer out the way he was kicked out, I just want to point out his rating was minus 42. And Andy Burnham, I know he's in the honeymoon period. It's only been 5 days, but he's got a net approval rating of plus 13. And Burnham currently ranks ahead of Kemi Badenoch, Ed Davey, Nigel Farage, and Zach Polanski. And a separate data poll research places Labour level with Refuck after an 8-point monthly increase in Labour support. Now that Keir Starmer's gone and Andy Burnham's taken his place. And look, there are people out there, I know, there's people watching this who absolutely fucking hate Labour and want the party to die, quite understandably. At the same time, there are people who were Labour to the core but didn't feel like Starmer was delivering the change that was promised by this massive, huge, insane landslide victory where Labour have ended up with 411 seats. They got 403 seats now. 400 seats. Jesus Christ, that's so many. And those politicians, they want to keep their jobs. You know, as simple as that. I was talking to, at the Labour Party conference last year, I was talking to Labour Party ministers, like secretaries of state, who were concerned that they might lose, if there was an election tomorrow, they might lose their seat that they'd held for 20 years or however long. They honestly believed that they would lose it the way things were going with Starmer at the helm, and that's why Starmer had to go. It's nothing personal. I didn't hate him. I didn't love him either. Same with Andy Burnham. I don't hate him. I don't love him either. He's a politician. It's fine. You know, it's just that's their job. And obviously, they're not going to make everyone entirely happy. But there are a few things that Burnham can do from the get-go. And if he's going to be listening to people who are saying to him that, you know, we don't want to be letting these murderers, well, they're not murderers, you see, it's people with determinate sentences. So there's a thing where there was a police officer who was murdered by these gobshites who dragged him on the back of their car, and they got done for manslaughter. They didn't get done for murder because they argued that it wasn't premeditated. So that got a determinate sentence, like, you know, there was a number of years, it wasn't just life. And as a result of that, they would be up for this. They might be up for this early release, right? So I get it. You know, like, you know, the family of the murdered police officer, or killed police officer, were up in arms about this, which I completely get. I completely understand that. I'm not going to take that away from them and say that they shouldn't be upset. I think they absolutely should be. They have the right to be. We don't know if they were going to get released early. I don't think, but they could be. They could be under this scheme. And don't forget, every time someone goes up for parole, it goes. You know, it's not an automatic process. I don't think, especially in terms of more serious crimes, it's not a box ticking exercise. It is, you know, they take each case on its own merits, or lack of them in this respect. But the fact that Burnham would listen to those people and say, okay, we're gonna have a pause on this, the fact that he listened to the people in the COP in 2009. You know, shouting justice, 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 and singing "We'll Never Walk Alone." And if we can get through to Burnham over this ridiculous guidance that's coming in, saying that you can go up to women and say they don't look feminine enough to go for a piss. Um, I mean, we need to get this message to Andy Burnham. So a good way of doing that, obviously, support the Good Law petition, and if you have any, if you get a chance, write to your MP this week and say, or this weekend, write to your MP, even if you've written to the MP before, and say, right, we've got a new leader. This needs to be suspended. Not only is this guidance like really, really, really homophobic, transphobic. It's just disgraceful on every level. I mean, it is homophobic because it means that butch lesbians will not be able to go for a piss because someone will accuse them of not being woman enough to go for a piss in the toilet. And as I've said before, the way that we can win this, the way that we can get venues on board, pubs, bars, restaurants, and things like that, just point out that if one woman is using the toilet and then another woman comes in and she looks at the first woman and thinks, you don't look feminine enough for my liking, that woman then goes out to the bar and tells the owners of the establishment, there's someone in the toilet, I don't think they should be in the toilet. And then that arbitrary decision is then made by the people in the pub to say you can't go for a piss here. And then that woman, cisgender woman, sues the fucking arse off that pub, and the pub closes down and never opens again. That's what's going to happen. Times that by 100,000. That's going to happen all over Britain. Of course it is. Of course it is, because not all women look particularly feminine in the Western beauty standard thing. I mean, look at the four of them from Scotland who brought this case in the first place, these horrible little TERFs. They're all clocky as fuck. I think that all four of them would get challenged in the toilet for using the wrong toilet. All four of them. And I don't know if it's transphobic me saying that. I hope it's not, and I hope you know that I'm not transphobic. I'm not saying it because I don't think that women should be allowed to look like that. Of course they should. Anyone should be able to look out however they want to present themselves, and we should support them and give them all the love and encouragement that they deserve. Like, if someone's a gobshite, no, they don't deserve any love and encouragement. But if someone's a lovely person, you just go up to them and say, well, I don't like how you look, so you can fuck off. I mean, what? But yeah, I think that the legal angle is certainly something that is worth banging the drum about. And it surprised me when Samantha Niblett, I think her name is, who's a Labour MP, who's very strong on LGBTQIA plus rights. She when I wrote on her TikTok, why don't you just use a statutory instrument to change the definition of a woman in the, to not change, but to set down what the definition of a woman is in the 2010 Equality Act, right? You set down the definition, that's all you do. You say it is a cisgender woman or a transgender woman with a gender recognition certificate, and make it easier to get a gender recognition certificate, obviously. But yeah, I mean, this whole thing, like I keep saying, put together by the oil companies and by the right wing because they want to stop women from voting. And you're like, what? How do you make that leap? Look at what's happening in America under this Trojan horse of transphobia. They are sneaking in rules to say you can't vote unless your name matches that of your birth certificate. And who does that disenfranchise? No, not just trans people. Married women who change their surname to their husband's name. Because we still do that. I think it's mad. But yeah, that's what we still do. Genuine question. Do people know about the good things Burnham is doing? Do we on here because we're geeks, but is it getting across on evening news, newspapers, etc.? Says Tim that. I have been watching this week a lot of Vox Pops, a lot of people, listening to a lot of people calling into the radio stations and things like that. And generally speaking, there is a very positive attitude towards Andy Burnham. I think that people on the left are willing to give him more of a chance than they were willing to give Keir Starmer. I don't think Keir Starmer got any chance from the get-go. We can argue that he squandered a lot of his the good feeling towards Labour when he got in. And Andy Burnham hasn't done that yet. I'm sure he will at some point. But the people who don't vote Labour, the Greens, people who have gone to the Greens could still think he's the devil incarnate because they hate Labour. And a lot of them are people who are fans of the last but one leader of Labour who isn't in Labour anymore. And obviously, they left in a huff because their guy isn't in charge anymore. Well, their guy lost 2 elections, that's why he's not in charge anymore. But he's not in the party anymore. But yeah, they will never come back to Labour, I don't think. But in a way, you see, this is the thing, Labour doesn't need them. You've got politics wonks, people who are really interested in politics. Let's say, that's 10% of the population. And then you've got to split that 50-50 between people who are right-wing policy wonks and political wonks. And so it's 5% of the population. And then of that 5%, 4% are generally a bit mainstream. And then maybe 1% of the population are absolutely cock-a-loop, crazy for the last but one leader of Labour. And nothing's ever going to change that now. They are dyed-in-the-wool Labour haters because their guy isn't leader of the party anymore. I mean, he wouldn't be anyway, all things being equal, just because he lost 2 elections and a referendum and a European election and lost hundreds of councillors. And Labour aren't going to put up with that anymore. I mean, they did. I mean, if we were still here in 3 years' time with Keir Starmer in charge, we have to give them the benefit of the doubt. We have to give them the benefit of the doubt. I'll be just going mad. Just look at those polls. When he left office, Keir Starmer, minus 42, with more than common, minus 42, from a high of 11, plus 11. That's, and I don't think it's just the papers. I really hate it when people go, you just don't like him because the papers told you not to like him. No, it's okay. I can think for myself. It's all right. It's something it's a talent I've developed over the years. I look at sort of evidence and go, okay, how's this all playing out? And Starmer and the previous guy, they were not well liked. They just look at the polling and just go, okay, people hate them. And unfortunately, for better or worse, politics is a popularity game. So what it is, people aren't popular. If they don't seem to have this common touch, then they're not going to last long. And that's why we've gone through 7 prime ministers. And I'll say we've gone through 7 prime ministers in the last 10 years because each in their own way wasn't suited to being prime minister. We had David Cameron, who gambled his, and then she was doing the, she was doing the general election of 2017, a few months before that, and she was awful. I mean, they still won. I mean, well, they lost the majority, but then they teamed up with the DUP in order to get the policies that they wanted to do over the line. But she was uniquely bad at that job. She was awful at that job. She was really shit at it. And then we had Boris Johnson, who didn't want the job. He just wanted to party every night. And then he was in charge during the pandemic, and tens of thousands of people who died unnecessarily because he was in charge and just didn't give a fuck. Didn't turn up to 5 Cobra meetings. All he was concerned about was jobs for the boys, giving VIP lane access to all this stuff. Who was it who said? Someone said on my Facebook the other day, like, jobs for the boys, about, was it about John Healey, our new what's it called, Chancellor. I was going to look this up. Hang on. Yeah. I think it was like John Healey, and they said jobs for the boys, and I was just like, what are you talking about? He's been in politics for years. He's served for 5 years in the Treasury in the 2000s. This guy's been around for forever. Hi, Kat. No, it's okay. It's okay. Kat's just putting the oven on. What are you having? Croissants. Oh, can I have one? Can I have a croissant? Yay, thank you. Cathal, thank you very much for the Euros, yay! We love getting Euros on this show. I'll be in Liverpool / Manchester for look next week. Inspect your Brexit benefits if anyone fancies a pint. Fantastic, Cathal. I'm not going to be there next week, but I'll be there a week on Sunday. So if you're still around a week on Sunday, I'll be about. Thank you very much for the super chat. It's very kind of you. And Sarah saying, just popping in to say hi, can't stay long. Hey Sarah, how you doing? You love having you on the show. Well, you know, in the chat. And yeah, it's all good. Kimberly, you're fine. Graham goes off on tangents all the time. Yeah, I do go on tangents all the time. But yeah, jobs to the boys. I couldn't believe that. It's like I put a thing about Healy being appointed chancellor. It's like, oh, jobs for the boys. I'm like, no, it's not. The whole point of jobs for the boys is people who aren't qualified to do a job are given a job by someone who is in a position to give their nephews or, you know, the boys, their mates, money, which is exactly what Boris Johnson did when he was Prime Minister. He just gave this VIP lane, allowed it to happen, the VIP lane. It was disgraceful. But what's not disgraceful is Viper Scott. Thank you very much, Viper Scott Alistair from Bonnie, Scotland. Thank you so much. That is very, very kind of you. And it allows me to, we're just going to do, are we going to do confetti? We're going to do confetti. Okay, let's do the confetti. Yay! Confetti! Confetti! Yes! Confetti! Yes! Okay, so cool. Thank you very much for that. That's very kind of you, Viper Scott. And I will set up. Let's see. We get a bin feffy in. God, you know, this election's going to be over soon. You know, the election, the bin face, bin fetty, bin fetty. I should put a little bin emoji on the. In there. Oh, never mind. Confetti, yay, Viper Scott's exciting. Imagine if Cam Binface wins the Clacton election on 13th of August. He's 9-1 on the betting site, so a cheeky tenner would return 100 quid. That'd be perfect. I think I might have a little cheeky bet. Well, there was, before the candidates were announced, he went down to 5-1. He was, you know, that's not bad, is it? 5-1. However, he didn't with all these other candidates coming in. I think it's 32. I think it's 32 candidates in all. Might be 34. With all these other candidates coming in, I think that's diluted the pool for the Trump for the Farage protest vote. Anyway, so yeah, Boris Johnson not suited to becoming Prime Minister. Liz Truss, awful at the job. She was absolutely dreadful, thick as pig shit. Like, she should not have ever been allowed anywhere near the high office in this land. And there she was, pork markets, and she only lasted 40 odd days, right? And then we had Rishi Sunak, he's just in it for the money, you know, some posh kid who's got worth over £500 million, who doesn't really give a shit about politics or people or anything. He's never met a real person. He just hangs out with his plastic friends, and he was in it to make lots and lots of money for his wife's dad's company, Emphasis, and they did that. They got some government contracts. That was nice. When Theresa May was in charge, when she was Home Secretary and when she was Prime Minister, Group 4 Security, G4S, they got a lot of contracts from the government. Who was in charge of that company at the time? Oh, it wouldn't be Theresa May's husband, would it? Oh, yeah, okay. Uniquely unsuited to the job. Do you know what? I'll go back to Gordon Brown, and I'll say Gordon Brown was uniquely not great at that job either. Mostly, shown by the fact he lost the 2010 election for Labour, but also he just wasn't suited to the job. Because as Prime Minister, you can't be a Debbie Downer, and he is a Debbie Downer. He always has been. He always will be. He's a dour Scotsman, and that's great behind the scenes, whatever. And I feel the same way about Keir Starmer. I don't think he's a dour Scotsman, but I do feel like he could have done so much better behind the scenes rather than being the guy in front. Maybe as leader of the opposition, he did quite well. Getting the party together, detoxifying the party, making Labour not seem scary to people, because a lot of people think Labour is scary because they've been told that Labour is scary from all of the newspapers for all the years, saying, "Oh no, don't vote Labour. They'll put taxes on you and give money to people who live in a wheelchair and under a bridge somewhere, and they don't deserve your money because they're too lazy." or whatever, you know. My great nephew has 4 gay uncles and 2 gay aunties. um, Good stuff. My son runs a huge pub in Somerset and he protects all LGBTQA folks. So proud of him. That's great news, Kimberly. There are a lot of good people out there. There really is. Martin says, I'm from the Wirral originally, but I'm in South Liverpool since 97 because I've always worked over there and got fed up with the commute. Worked over here, so got fed up with the commute. Gordon Brown was a superb chancellor. He never got the credit he deserved for heading off the worst of the financial crisis. Yes, yeah, War and Peace. And I think that if the financial crisis had hit and he was still chancellor, and he did exactly what he did when he was prime minister and Alistair Darling was chancellor, people would have lauded him. People would have really lauded him. But because he was prime minister, because of the way he came across, he wasn't great. And I think Keir Starmer, probably as a leader of the opposition, just to get the Labour back into a position where they could become elected again, I think he did a fantastic job at that. Actually being in power, actually being the Prime Minister, he wasn't as good as we were hoping that he would be. Let's put it that way. And, not his fault. We can't all be awesome at everything. And yeah, this is why Andy Burnham, I have got a lot of hope that not only will he be a much better prime minister than the 7 we've had before him, I'm also hoping that he will be able to take Labour into the next election and win it, not just squeak it, but win it. Which, looking at the polls, it looks like that might be happening. As Burnham's approval rating is going up, the approval rating or the polls for refuck are going down. And Nigel Farage has upset a lot of people, and I think more people are sort of becoming aware that Nigel Farage isn't acting in their favour. But yes, so yes, we want to I just want to move quickly over to the other side of the Atlantic for a moment. I'm going to wrap up soon because I need to have a croissant. Cats put croissants in the oven, so that's good. I hope the oven's going. It looks like it's going. Are we prepared for PM questions with Andy B? Should be fun. Yeah, I think Andy B is better at thinking on his feet than Starmer would be, and it should be quite entertaining at the very least. See what he comes back with when people try and needle him. It should be interesting. But let's not forget, Burnham has the experience. So someone said, "Oh, he hasn't got the experience." I was like, "Are you kidding me?" Because he hasn't been prime minister before. He hasn't got the experience. I'm like, and Liz Truss did what Rishi Sunak did. Boris Johnson. I mean, not only was Andy Burnham mayor of Manchester for 8 years, but he was also a government minister under the Blair Brown administration. And also, this is the guy who got the Hillsborough inquiry going. That was him. That was Andy Burnham. Andy Burnham made that decision on the pitch at Anfield in April 2009, and he said, "We're going to do something. We're going to get justice." We had this bullshit investigation when the Tories were in charge, and they just lied. All these people in positions of power, they lied, and as a result of the second investigation, we got the 96 cases of unlawful killing. 97 as it became, and the Hillsborough law, as it is going through Parliament now, it's passed through the Commons. It's gone through the third reading in the Commons, and now it's going over to the Lords for any kind of amendments, spit and polish, and it should be law before the end of the year, probably October, November. It should be law. It should get the King's signature, which changes everything. I mean, it's not just for the families of people who lost their loved ones at Hillsborough, but the tainted blood scandal, the Horizon post office scandal, the Grenfell disaster scandal. I mean, it's interesting, isn't it, that Grenfell happened 9 years ago. 9 years ago, Grenfell happened, and no one's gone to jail. No one's in court. No one's facing any criminal proceedings. In Hong Kong last year, there was that massive fire across a apartment complex. I think it was in Kowloon on the mainland. I don't think it was on the island, but I'm sure if David Faulkner's watching, he'll be able to set me right on that. But while the fire was still raging, and that people were being arrested. People were being arrested for the fire while the fire was still going. That's how quickly the authorities were there. And I know, obviously, that they don't live in a democracy, really, in the special administrative region of Hong Kong of China. But, I mean, still. School of Flourishing. Burnham is so good. His first promise is to end rough sleeping in the UK when he couldn't achieve it in Manchester. Well, one of the issues in Manchester that he faced was the fact that because it wasn't a national campaign, a national policy, then it meant that if he provided housing for people in Manchester who are homeless, people got on the bus from Liverpool, from Leeds, from Birmingham, from Sheffield, from London, from Newcastle to come to Manchester, knowing that if they went to Manchester, they'd be able to get somewhere to live. So he was successful in taking people off the streets, but more people came to Manchester because it was the only city that people knew that they could go to and get somewhere to live rather than being on the streets, rough sleeping. So if it's a nationwide campaign, people won't move. They'll stay where they are because there'll be an option where they are. So in that respect, yes, it was successful. But because it wasn't a national thing, then it became unsuccessful because, not became unsuccessful. It wasn't as successful as it could have been. But his speech at Anfield was very good. Yeah. Went down in Manchester. Homeless came from neighbouring areas, says Mr. Tish. Yes, that's the point I just made. So if it's a nationwide campaign, that won't happen. Anyway, listen, can we talk about Trump for a moment? Just for a moment, because I just want to read some stuff to you about him. So he's imposed new tariffs. He's put 50% tariff on Canada. 50% tariffs. He's now put tariffs on dozens of trading partners, including the UK, European Union, and China. And they say this is because of the inadequate enforcement against forced labour and other unfair trade practices. So this is America, which still uses slave labour in their jails. So you go to jail in America, you're forced to work. If you don't work, you get put in a box. They're accusing countries like the UK of unfair trade practices, which is kind of crazy. And then, I'm sorry, what? Slavery? What are you talking about? Forced labour from America? This is America saying this? It just, pot calling the kettle black. Very much so. And then several affected governments have rejected the US justification and are considering responses. Asian and European stock markets have fell after the announcement because of concerns about more trade disruption and inflation caused by Donald Trump. And meanwhile, he's done this deal this week with the Saudis about nuclear enrichment, right? So they were allowed to enrich uranium, whatever, and he's now backheeled it. He's said no, I've changed my mind, much to the chagrin of the Saudi authorities. The Saudi authorities now bankroll Donald Trump and Osama bin Laden and people who hate America, and have done for many years. And they're a bit shocked. That they've got to normalise their relations with Israel. That's going to be it. Saudi Arabia knew this already because this was the deal that Biden struck with them, and they were working towards it. But they said the normalization of relations with Israel depends on progress towards a Palestinian state, and obviously that's gone backwards in the last few years. And the proposed partnership would permit the construction of civilian reactors using American technology. But in any case, Congress had to review the agreement before it can take effect. But this was announced by the Trump administration, like, we've done this deal, we've done this amazing deal, this best deal in the world. And then they've just immediately turned around and gone, no, we're not going to do that. I mean, yeah. Anyway, there's been a drought declared in Wales. National Resource Wales has declared drought conditions in North Wales and the Upper Severn, where river levels in several catchments are or close to record lows. And some affected areas received almost no meaningful rainfall during July. Welsh Water has introduced restrictions in parts of West Wales, and wildfires and dry ground have damaged habitats and brought forward some crop harvesting. Reservoir supplies remain more stable than river and groundwater conditions, which is a bit of good news, but still not great at all. And the threat of wildfire is very real, and it's caused by global warming. Anyway, one of the reasons why we need to have a prime minister who makes people feel good about themselves is not just so they can go on to win elections, but also because it helps the country. And one of the ways it helps the country is in consumer confidence. And we've had the largest monthly rise in consumer confidence for almost 3 years now. And the survey on this was conducted after Burnham won the Makerfield by-election, but before he entered Downing Street. But respondents were already becoming more optimistic about the wider economy and major and they're happy to pay for major purchases. Well, not happy, willing to pay. I don't think anyone's really happy to spend money on anything, but so confidence remains below its average, long-term average, but it could be affected by higher energy prices. And then also, in a bit of good news for Burnham's he's been quite lucky in a lot of ways. I know we can talk about him hitting the ground running. But we know we talk about him hitting the ground running, but he has been given a little bit of a boost. He's got some power-ups along the way. Bake at home croissants, yeah. No, the ones that are already baked that you get from Lidl, and then you just put them in the oven to reheat them. Hughes, do you not think that Burnham should call a general election to mandate his PM office in the north and other pledges that are not aligned with the Labour 2024 manifesto? Well, the manifesto is to do with things that the Labour Party promised to do to the country, and there is a lot of wiggle room in there for him to do stuff. Now, when it comes to number 10, North, that's administration. That's not something that needs to be put forward in the manifesto. He can run his office any way he wants to. He's the Prime Minister. So, for instance, Boris Johnson didn't have to call a general election to allow him to have parties every night during COVID, when we weren't allowed to visit our relatives, weren't allowed to be with our sick and dying grandparents, weren't allowed to attend our friends' funerals. He was having a party with loads of cocaine and hookers and wet wine up the wall and people having sex in cupboards and things like that. Every night, pretty much, during, and then he didn't have to take that to the general election because it's his thing, it's his office, it's number 10. He can do what he wants with number 10, with him being in charge at number 10. That's just the way it works. So no, I don't think he needs a general election at all. Boris Johnson didn't have a general election to become leader. Theresa May didn't have a general election to become leader. Gordon Brown didn't have a general election to become leader. Liz Truss didn't. Rishi Sunak didn't. John Major didn't when he took over from Thatcher. So of all the prime ministers that have been alive in my lifetime, only Thatcher and Blair, Cameron and Keir Starmer, 4 of them. So I think I've had 10 prime ministers in my lifetime. 4 of them actually won an election, actually won the general election, and got the job by dint of winning a general election. All the others just took over from the last person because we don't have a presidential system in this country. And thank God for that, because in America, the president carks it or goes mad. You don't have an election to get a new one. You put the vice president in his place. In fact, if you're in South Carolina and the senator dies, like Lindsey Graham died last week, you never guess who takes over. His sister. There you go. There's a nice little family dynasty for you. So no, this argument that we should have a general election, I think it's absolute nonsense. We didn't have and when it comes from like refuck from Nigel Farage's private party, his private enterprise, his private limited company, when it comes from that, yeah. Butter, please, thanks. Hey, I'm gonna get a croissant. This is cool. But yeah, so I just don't have any issue with it, especially when one of the guys who's moaning about having a general election the most is a guy who literally was appointed as leader of his of Reform UK PLC, public limited company, and he's a major shareholder of that company, has been for a very long time, and that's how it works. It will face calls for a general election, though. This is where Labour comms need to be excellent. They will need to fill the airways with good news from government to drown out the election calls. Yeah, but there's no constitutional reason why they have to have an election, unless you see, the thing about the manifesto is this, right? So people going, "Oh, we need to change the voting system and bring in PR." I don't think he can, and the reason for this is there's the Parliament Act of I don't know, 1911 or something. Cheers. I had to learn about this when I was doing my A levels. Essentially, the House of Lords is the upper chamber, so it can block anything that the Commons wants to do. Right. So in 1911, they said you've got to stop doing that. We're going to bring in the Parliament Act, and what that means is that the lower house, the House of Commons, can override the House of Lords. But the deal is that the House of Lords can't overrule anything that is in the manifesto of the winning party. So if there's something in the manifesto, the House of Lords can try to overrule it, but then they can be overruled in turn by the lower house, by the House of Commons, by the elected chamber. But if it's not in the manifesto, then it made an argument that it's not in the manifesto. The House of Lords can say, no, we're gonna kill this dead, which is what they did with the assisted dying law that was going through, the assisted dying bill of Kim Leadbeater that was going through Parliament, and they held it up. They held it up until the parliamentary session ran out, and the government couldn't use the Parliament Act to ram it through because it wasn't in the manifesto. So if Burnham was to bring in proportional representation, this is a major shift in our constitution. He would need to run either a general election with it on the manifesto, or he would have to have a referendum to decide. But when it comes to elections, Andy Burnham was elected in Makerfield, which voted 66% to leave the European Union. Makerfield, whose wards, nearly all of them voted for its council wards, nearly all of them voted for refuck in the election a month earlier in May, in the local elections. And he managed to win, and not just win by a little, he won by a lot, decisively. He was 10,000 votes more than the nearest candidate, the refucker, who the so-called plumber, and he got over 50% of the vote. He got 55% of the vote, of the total vote. Even if you added up the Tory vote and the refuck vote and the restore vote, it didn't come anywhere near what Andy Burnham got. He absolutely monstered it. And if he can do that, and I'll say this now, I couldn't have done that. You couldn't have done that. In fact, no one else, I don't think, in the country could have done that, running on a Labour ticket. I don't think it could be done. Not in that particular constituency. If he can win there, if he can make it there, then he can make it anywhere. Like New York. A kosher baker near me does killer croissants. Oh, you don't want to die from having a croissant. Look. That's good stuff, that. King's Speech, Graham, is the test. Well, yeah. If it's in the King's Speech, they can't kick it out, can they? Deers, I can smell them, making me hungry. Don't normally eat before lunchtime, but a stressed friend needs cheering up. Oh, that's nice, Martin. Killer croissants, are they like boomerang bagels? Burnham won all but one ward, won by a local independent in the last mayoral elections, an area with 3 million people. I know, this is the thing. It's a bit like they said, we need to have a leadership contest for Burnham. I was like, no, we don't. What's the point? What is the point? He would win it. You just end up spending a lot of time and money and effort, picking someone from Labour, Darren Jones or someone to run against him, and then you'd have a campaign where they're trying to explain why they're better than the other guy. I I just, yeah, and people spitting to factions, and then people get bitter because their person didn't win. And when 379 of the 403 Labour MPs vote to have Burnham as their leader, then there you go. That's your vote. It's fine. It's okay. Well, they didn't vote, did they? They nominated. They said, we want this guy, which is what I think, it is fair enough. If you've got a footy team and literally everyone in the football team and all the managers and the execs and the team themselves all overwhelmingly want this particular manager who wants the job, what's the point of going, well, no, we've got to put it out to tender? No, just give him the fucking job. See how he does. If he fucks up, and he might, got another election in 2 years or 3 years. I think he'll go early. I'm thinking now, looking at the figures, looking at the polls. I know it's still early on in his premiership, but I think that probably if he manages to keep this level of support, he'll probably go early. Not next year, I don't think, but probably 2028 rather than 2029 for the next general election. But it will also depend on what happens in Clacton with Nigel Farage. We shall see. There were worse ways to die than eating pastries. Indeed. Farage did it by deliberately selecting an absolutely unsuitable candidate. He brought down the government, says California Dreaming. Burnham, but I mean, look, when there's a candidate for a job, and it is a job, and they're qualified for it, they've been voted in, and they're doing something that I don't think anyone else in this country can do. Not just anyone in Labour, mind you. Anyone in the country, I don't think, could have done this. I mean, even Nigel Farage, standing on a Labour ticket, wouldn't have won in Makerfield. But yeah. Elle's link to, stop sex matters spreading transphobic hate. Yes, I'm going to pin that message. Thank you very much, Elle, for that. That is now pinned. They are the size of a donut. Donut tempt me, said Gandalf. So what else have we got? We've got the retail sales rebounding. Another bit of good news for Andy Burnham. UK retail sales increased unexpectedly in June. Clothing retailers and sellers of cooling equipment benefited from the hot weather. World Cup related spending also contributed to increased activity. And the US is continuing to its strikes on Yemen, a 13th consecutive night of attacks on Iranian targets. They struck military infrastructure, including drones, surveillance, and coastal facilities. Meanwhile, the EU has expanded sanctions against Russia. I mean, I keep reading this now and again, like every few months ago, they've expanded the sanctions. Why haven't they? Why weren't they put to this point in the first place? Like, they invaded a neighbouring country. They enslaved thousands of Ukrainian children and marched them back to Russia. Marched them to Russia to have God knows what is done to them. I mean, 20,000 Ukrainian children are missing. Have been kidnapped by Russian monsters who have taken them to put in their underground fucking lairs or whatever they keep them in. Why are they're going on? They've got a latest sanctions package against. Why wasn't this all done in the first place? Like, as soon as they did it, this is it. But the measures cover additional banks, companies, individuals, cryptocurrency services, and organisations linked to oil trading. Greece secured an exemption affecting the transportation of liquefied natural gas. Oh, thanks for that, Greece. Ukraine has welcomed the decision and called for economic pressure, called for continued economic pressure on Russia. And meanwhile, Volkswagen is not doing so well. It no longer expects its revenue to grow during 2026, which is, not great for Volkswagen, but there you go. So what else have we got in the news? Wildfires in France, which are really, really horrific, that are going on right now. There's also fires up in the north of Spain as well, all caused by climate change. Today is the first day that Andy Burnham is going to be spending working from the northern branch of Number 10, which is really cool and interesting. And I like it when politicians try something new instead of just doing the same old all the time. Try something new. Try just and this is very much breaking out of the echo chamber, because London is a bubble. London is a bubble. You've got bubbles within bubbles within bubbles. So London, bubble. Then you've got the rich in London, smaller bubble. Then you've got the mega rich in London who said, went to Eton and Harrow and stuff like that, and Nigel Farage's old school, and that's an even tinier bubble within a bubble within a bubble, and they don't live in the real world. They don't live in the real world. I do Aldi often. The little middle aisle tends to occupy me for literally hours. It's like the Twilight Zone. Sometimes days can pass the middle a little. My old manager's surname was Dobble. I pissed myself when he post delivered as dough ball. Sorry, donuts make me think of it. Yeah. Investigation launched into after Refuck Wakefield councillors attempted to have a music event shut down by force due to posters taking the mick out of the party leader, Nigel Farage. Oh my God. Adrian Wyatt, Burnham could create enough new Lords to have a majority in the House of Lords, then ran through PR before the general election as a policy unchanged since the 2010 manifesto, or have STV plus AV plus referendum. Yeah, Adrian, the thing is with that as well, I mean, if you're going to improve democracy, I don't know if the best way to do it is by behaving in quite an undemocratic fashion. I think there needs to be a popular support for changing the voting system before we change the voting system. I know that a lot of us are like, but it'll be good for the country, it'll be good for everyone. Yeah, we know that. We know that. The people out there that don't necessarily know that. So yeah, put it into the manifesto. Put it to the test though. Fires also in Portugal and hundreds in Canada. Yeah, Canada's suffering from fires at the moment. And Trump is saying, you stop all your smoke coming over. All this smoke's coming over from Canada. Stop it. I'm just like, if Graham shows us his croissant, I'm gonna go nuts. Here's my croissant. But I'm just gonna go over to the papers now, very, very, very briefly, because I am gonna have to wrap up because I think the kids want to use the kitchen to make some food. Yes, if you bear with me for just one of your Earth moments, one of your Earth minutes, we'll go over to the papers, I hope. There we go. So first of all, we've got the Star over here. We've got Superman, I'm working from home. Burnham, I'll be at my number 10 today. So there you go. That's Burnham at number 10. And then we've got Adele. Here's what to do on a yacht. We've got taxes cut for pubs and clubs to protect working class culture. We've got Burnham eager to get drilling in North Sea. Industry expects green light to open up new fields, or 2 of them, which are going to produce a tiny amount of oil, but whatever. Gets all the dickheads on side, I suppose. And then we've got the police box there with the King and the Queen coming out, because in case you forgot what they look like. And that's the start of the Commonwealth Games in Glasgow, just down the road from where I am, actually. Harry waits on security as police busy with ex-PMs. The Duke of Sussex is being forced to wait for a decision about his security arrangements in Britain, while officials grapple with protecting an unprecedented 9 former prime ministers at once. Wow. I mean, yeah, that's crazy, isn't it? What have we got from the I newspaper? Listen, before we go into the eye here, into the eye of the storm, see what I did there? I'm going to change the super chat thing, because I don't know if we're going to get any more super chats in. So I'm going to remove that. And then what I'll do is I'll just do one more. Start another goal. Just one super chat will release the bin Feffy. So if someone wants to give us some bin, they're very welcome to do so. Bin, there we go, put a little bin emoji at the end there. Okay, bin Fetty. Where was I? Okay, you mean Adele PLC, public limited company? Yeah, she's getting made into a public limited company. By Count Binface. I love that. He's going to nationalise Adele. That's what he wants to do. State pensioners with no other income will be exempt from tax. This is another Burnham policy. The new Chancellor, John Healey, gives commitment that pensioners whose only earnings are the state pension will not pay income tax. In good news for 820,000 retirees, from next year, the state pension will be dragged into UK taxation for the first time because of triple lock increases. Treasury tells the paper that Healey won't levy income tax on people who are reliant solely on the state pension. There you go, another populist move by the government, something that they can do, something that they've put out and made sure that it's in the newspapers. It's an exclusive for the eye, so they get to crow about it. And yeah, I mean, this is all good. This is all good stuff. Saz, thank you very much for the £2 super chat. That is very kind of you, and that does mean that we have achieved our goal, and that allows me to do this. Bin face! Bin face, bin face, confetti, bin face, bin face. Bin face, confetti, yo. Okay, cool. Thanks very much for that, Saz. That's very kind of you. And yeah, moving on, we've got I Can Be Quite Terrifying from Motherland's Paul Reddy. And then we've got drought declared in first regions of UK after record heat waves. And there's an interview with Janice Winehouse. God, what's wrong with me this morning? I'm talking about Amy Winehouse. She was a victim of the success she never wanted. And then we've got the Daily Fail here. His Royal Highness. See what they've done there? It's a joke. It's a pun. The emotional torture of sharing my home with my ex and his new love. Jesus Christ. Public interest story there on the front cover of the Daily Mail. And then we've got, as Kemi warns of threat to national security, a terrifying report finds every single advanced AI model goes rogue in testing. Yeah. I mean, in other news, water is wet. I mean, the sky is blue. Yeah. So that's something to worry about, isn't it? Now we've got the Daily Express here. We've got there's a really awful story yesterday. A girl, 15, and mum die in beach tragedy. They were going out to rescue a 7-year-old boy who was out in the water, got into trouble, and a girl and the mum died. Awful, absolutely awful story. Reform pledge to build Nightingale prisons to keep criminals off the streets. New cells will end the early release scandal. This is what Nigel Farage thinks that Burnham can do. I think it's what he thinks that Burnham's likely to do, to be honest with you. And I think he's right in that. I hate saying Nigel Farage is right ever, but I think that is going to be one of the options. And I know there's difficulties. I know that it's going to be not ideal in any way, shape or form. But I think what he's done there is he's put that in so he can say, when it does happen in the autumn, he'll say, that was my idea. They've taken my idea. That's what I wanted to do. But you know what? If he wants to say that, just go, yeah, whatever, mate. Whatever, we don't need you in power. We don't need you in power to get rid of the boats. We don't need you in power to sort out the problem with the overflowing prisons. We don't need you in power. Not now, not ever. You gobshite. Nigel Farage. So yeah, moving on, we've got the Tory graph here. Burnham orders halt to early release. We've got an article at the top there about hairstyles to beat the heat. And then we've got Iran threatens RAF base and royal family after wave of US strikes. We've got Badenoch slams door on Shapps as MP. Kemi Badenoch has blocked Grant Shapps. Sir, who made him a sir for standing for the Tories in the next election? COVID experts privately suspected lab leak. We've got Pavarotti's Taylor in £550,000 fridge fight. I don't know what the hell that story's about, but there you go. It's there. Gas chief sounds winter energy alert. Britain is at risk of winter energy crisis. The boss of British Gas has warned. We'll go quickly now to the Financial Times. We've got oil hits $100 as Trump weighs massive strike on Iranian targets. Escalation batters stocks and bonds. Houthi threat deepens market fears. We've talked about this before. It's not just about the threat from Iran of missiles going out and shutting the Strait of Hormuz. It's also about ships coming round the Horn of Africa and going through the strait between Yemen and Somalia, and Djibouti and Eritrea, yeah, the worry is that that gets closed off to shipping as well. Then that's going to affect not just 10% of the world's energy market, but also 50% of all of the trade that moves around the world, because a ridiculous amount of trade goes through the Suez Canal. It can't be 50%. That's too much. Suez Canal. Percentage of world. Oh God, it's really hard to write with my. I wrote Suez Vanal perventag of Wolf Trado. But there you go. 15 to 20 20 to 20 sorry 12 to 15% of all total world trade goes through the Suez Canal, and roughly 30% of global container traffic. So yeah, 1/3 of global container traffic goes through the Suez Canal. And if the Houthis block off that strait, then you're gonna have to go all the way around Africa, which takes a long time. A long time. Anyway, should we get back to the papers? We were mulling over the Financial Times here. We've got what's this going on here? Wall Street scrutinized. Former Barclay boss Staley faces Capitol Hill grilling on Epstein relationship. Okay, interesting stuff. Then we've got the briefing here on the column here. Mid-East war hits EasyJet profits as confidence falls. City police in fraud appeal. We've got Energy Group seeks steer. Burnham's energy secretary has visited Aberdeen to meet the industry figures in hoping the government's pragmatism will allow for more North Sea drilling. Trump caveats Saudi deal. ECB considers rate rise. Modi breaks silence. Macquarie gets new chief, and EU fines Google 890 million euros. Didn't we cover that yesterday? Oh, this is today's news. Okay, whatever. Question on 9 million. Question on $9 million crypto received by betting account in the name of Farage Aid. The betting account in the name of George Cottrell, the convicted fraudster who bankrolls Nigel Farage, received almost $9 million in cryptocurrency from unidentified sources while he was providing gifts and benefits to the refuck leader. Well, there you go. And then Europe's heat waves spur disruptive flash drought. Europe is suffering a flash drought after early heat waves and hit the continent beginning in May. I'm sorry about the low resolution of the picture of the image there. Not my fault. Not my fault. Not my words, Lynn. The words are Shakin' Stevens. And then we've got the Mirror leading the tragedy on the beach trip that I've mentioned. The 15-year-old and the mum drowns trying to save a boy of 7 on a family day out. We've got Burnham there. My nights out at the hacienda. Oh dear. Oh, do we want to know about that? I'm not sure. We want to know, Andy. I mean, And then we've got the same picture used on the Metro there. Burnham poll boost as he cuts rates for pubs. Ahead on pints. Instead of a head on point, he's a head on pint. You see what they've done there? First new leader since Tory May to enjoy a positive rating as Farage's support plummets. But landlords give tax reduction a cautious welcome, saying more needs to be done. That's really cool. And then we go into, where was I? The Independent final paper here. We've got tax cut, pints in pubs. Are we heading for a snap election? Oh, I don't think so, but we might. I don't know. Wildfires ravage sweltering Europe as first part of UK declares drought. And Burnham puts early prisoner release scheme on hold. PM halts Labour's plan to ease prison crowding and promises no inmates will be let out until urgent review after outrage at prospect of freedom of 2 of young policemen's killers. So there you go. That's all the news that's fit to print. Well, news in inverted commas. Hang on. Sorry a sec. Right. Yeah, where are we? Andy claims never did drugs though. Yeah. Well, I've been to some outrageous parties in my time, some nights out and club nights and a lot of gigs. I've never done drugs. Is he drinking Guinness? I saw him down half a pint of Guinness the other day on one of his viral videos. Yeah, fun fact. So if you look on the BBC story yesterday about um, the 20% business business rates cut for English pubs, clubs, and live music venues. One of the people who spoke to the BBC, who was a pub owner, was Ian Hoskins. He's the owner of Liverpool's Mar Pub Group. They own Mar Edgerton's at the back of the Empire Theatre, also Mar Boyle's, or the old Oyster Bar, down by the pier head at the end of Water Street, and also Tabac at the top of Bowl Street. And he was talking about how this business rate helps venues that, under the previous rate relief. He's got 5 venues in Liverpool, and 4 of them didn't qualify for it because they were cafe bars. So during the daytime they did coffee, and then in the evening they were a bar, and that because that was like a hybrid version, it didn't quite fit neatly into the box, so he didn't get the rate relief that that other places did. And he's saying that that's wrong. That needs to make sure that all the places that need the rate relief get it. So and also Ian is a mate of mine, and he's also the guy that we went to meet up with, Steve Rotherham, the Liverpool mayor of Metro Mayor of Liverpool, Steve Rotherham. Met up with him 2 weeks ago, and Ian came with us to that meeting. So if you're watching this, hi Ian. But yeah, he was all over the news yesterday. I saw him on the BBC, and I sent a thing to him saying, "Oh yeah, I saw you on the BBC," and he's like, "Yeah, I was on the BBC. I was also on Radio 5 Live, and I was on Sky News, and I was on Radio 4." I was like, "Oh, cool." So yeah, one of the last anti-Catholic laws. Burnham is Roman Catholic, so cannot advise on the appointment of bishops. What? That's kind of crazy, isn't it? Didn't they change the words in the national anthem from popish tricks to knavish tricks? Because there was a bit of anti Catholicism in there. He's also, he's the first Prime Minister who went to university, who didn't go to Oxford since 1935. Head on pints. At first I thought that said pinhead. I ain't right. The Sith are clouding my mind. Don't worry, it could happen to the best of us. Jedi Masters. Okay, this will be fun to watch. A yacht has broken free of its mooring. The tide is still coming in. So where we'll end up is anyone's guess. Oh no! Oh, that's not good. That's not good. On the Mersey. Jesus. One of the last I've read that one. It was a guest beer, bitter, I think, or dark ale if you're from the 19th century. Anyway, right, gotta go. Gotta go get on with the day. Listen, 1 o'clock today, I will be joined by the fabulous Phil Morehouse. We're going to be talking about the week. With Andy Burnham in charge, and the way that he's been conducting, especially his comms, which obviously Phil and I are quite interested in, because we think that Starmer's comms weren't very good. I think that's a very controversial opinion to hold. And what hopes we have for the future of the Burnham administration, and also what Phil thinks about the picks for Burnham's cabinet, and he has opinions. So please join us at 1 o'clock today for the agenda, technology permitting, and we should be having a good laugh at that at 1 o'clock today, 1 till 2. So please join us for that. Tell your friends, tell your neighbours, tell your loved ones to come along and join in the chat, which you can do simply by hitting the subscribe button. So long as you're subscribed, you can join the chat. But please, don't be a troll. Don't be mean to people. Don't call me a knobhead. Don't call Phil a knobhead. Don't call each other knobheads. Just be civil, be nice. We can have disagreements, but in a respectful way. Otherwise, I might have to bring out the parliamentary rules that you're not allowed to, certain terms are not allowed to be used, and you're not allowed to say you. You've got to address the speaker. We'll make Diz the speaker, and we've all got to speak through Diz. Okay, so every time you leave a message, you've got to be talking to Diz, not me. You got to say, tell Graham that, tell the right honourable member for members, for giant swinging members. Anyway, so hopefully see you in a couple of hours for that. And until then, thank you so much for watching. Take care. Until next time. Hello, good evening, welcome, and goodbye.